So, what are my final thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077? Now that I've uploaded the last episode of my first playthrough, what would I like to say that I couldn't say before for fear of spoiling the ending for you? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Now, I've already done a video where I talked about some of the problems I had with the mechanics, some of the things I thought should be improved, and I'll put a card on the video somewhere here for you to click on if you want to go and find out what those issues were. That video is completely spoiler free. I avoided any spoilers in that video, but you need to understand this video is going to contain spoilers because I want to talk about the pacing of the game and how I think it should have been changed, the problems I had with it, and ways I feel it could have been done better. I'm also going to be talking about the ending I got in my Let's Play, and possibly briefly mentioning some of the other endings that I have played through since then. So, once again, warning, spoiler alert. There will be spoilers in this video. I do want to once again emphasize the fact that I actually thoroughly enjoyed playing Cyberpunk 2077. I did 2 full playthroughs and I did a sort of third test playthrough, and I really enjoyed the game. I do have some issues with it. I have found flaws with it. I will criticize it. But overall, taken as a whole package, I really did enjoy Cyberpunk 2077. Although I do have to point out that I played it on a very high-end PC, so I experienced the best game it could be. I experienced Cyberpunk 2077 at its best. So even though I played quite early on, I didn't have as many bugs as a lot of people. I did not have performance issues compared to other people. And I got to see Night City at its greatest. I mean, it looked phenomenal. So bear that all in mind. However, this video is going to be focusing on one of the things that I did not particularly like, and that is the pacing. Now, anyone who's played the game probably already knows what I'm going to say. The pacing of this game makes it very difficult to roleplay, to stay in character, and do an awful lot of the content that the game has to offer, because you're pretty much on the clock the entire time, and any time you take a moment to do something that isn't critically important, you feel a little weird, a little odd, like you're doing something strange. Now, you can find reasons to do different things. There are ways to do it, but you tend to be stretching the narrative an awful lot. And I feel like in my playthrough, I stretched the narrative to its absolute breaking point. And some people are probably going to argue I stretched it too much and broke the narrative. And I'm not going to argue with you if that's your feeling. I tried not to break it, but in the end, I had to actually just go along with the narrative, and the game ended before I had a chance to experience a lot of things that I really do want to experience, because I just got to a point where I couldn't stretch it anymore and genuinely continue to see the narrative as making sense, to suspend disbelief and play the game as though it was, you know, real, for want of a better word. And I don't mean that literally, but the same way as when you watch Lord of the Rings, you suspend disbelief and you temporarily believe in Gandalf and the hobbits and what's going on, even though you know it's a bunch of actors. You still care about the characters, you're still invested in the story, and, you know, I like to play games that way, and there just becomes a point where if I stretch the narrative too much, that snaps and I stop seeing it as real. I can no longer suspend disbelief, and I now can't believe what I'm doing. So that was the worry when I got close to the end. There was a moment that arrived, and the moment was when V turned round to Johnny and pretty much said, well, I hope we can go and see Hanako now. And Johnny said, yeah, let's go and hear what she's got to say. At that point, I'd just run out of ideas of how to stall the game and carry on, especially with what was left. The content that was left is probably absolutely brilliant, but it didn't seem particularly relevant to my character. So I just had to go with it. And I think a lot of people were surprised when the end of my playthrough occurred, because there was so much content left. But like I said, it's because I couldn't stretch anymore without snapping it. But of course, the narrative pacing was a problem from the moment go with this game. I didn't realize it initially, because a lot of games start by pushing you along, yeah? A lot of games will start by giving you some basic quests, almost tutorials. They'll push you along, they'll restrict certain things, and you're expected to get to a certain point, and then the world will open up. And this is what I thought was going to happen in Cyberpunk 2077. I thought Act 1 was going to be constrained in Watson, and that I didn't have to worry too much about missing things in Watson, because once I got Act 1 done, once I got that main mission done, the whole city would open up, and then I would be able to just sort of wander around and do my own thing. Of course, we all know now, Act 1 ends, and it ends in such a way that the rest of the game is pretty much, well, on the limit. It's absolutely on the limit. In theory, you are now told that you have a matter of weeks to live. A few weeks. Now, that's a bit vague. Could be 3 or 4 weeks, could be 5 or 6 weeks, you know, it's a bit vague, but that's not a huge amount of time, especially considering you're not just going to die in 6 weeks. You're slowly getting rewritten, which means you're currently dying right now. You are dying. A little piece of you dies every second. And it feels a bit weird to be thinking, you know, oh, I just want to goof off and mess around and do this, and I want to see if I can go around and collect all the cars or anything else that you might want to do. It just feels kind of silly. I mean, it feels off. So of course now I find myself wishing I'd taken a bit more time in Act 1. That would have only opened up a few more quests in Watson, to be honest, and saved me a little bit of stress, but I wish I'd done it. But even in Act 1, it wasn't particularly easy, because even without that narrative pressure they present you, that sort of, you know, the imminent doom you are facing, the game mechanics themselves tended to, well, prod you and make you want to get certain things done, because if you didn't, you felt like, well, a bit of a dick, to be honest. I understand they wanted a feeling of urgency with this main quest, but the problem is it's an open world game that has a lot of content. There are a lot of side quests for you to do, and if you make the main quest so urgent that doing the side quests makes you feel silly, you've got a conflict built into the game. People who want to roleplay, people who want to follow the narrative and really sink themselves into it, are going to find it very difficult to experience a lot of the side quests, a lot of the other great content, whilst enjoying the main quest, while still treating the main quest with the urgency that you wanted it to have. So yeah, I understand you want the main quest to have urgency, but if the player ends up having to just ignore the main quest to experience the side quests, all that urgency disappears. Because now what they've done is they've heard, I've got a few weeks to live, and thought, to that, and off they go and do other things. That means that it's going to be very hard for them to continue taking the main quest seriously, or feel that it's urgent. I think it was a mistake to tell V that he had weeks to live. In fact, I don't think it should have been phrased in a way of, you know, you've got a certain time to live. I think it should have been phrased as, you're going to notice you lose bits of your personality all the time. The longer you leave it, the worse it will become. This would feel a little more vague, but also controllable. And then he could say, I will give you these tablets. It will slow the process down. I don't know how much by. You've still got the incentive to get yourself fixed. You've still got the incentive to save your life. And indeed, stop Johnny rewriting you. But you don't feel quite the pressure to ignore everything else all the side quests. So I think the main quest could have been handled just a little differently. And this definitely goes for the end. And I'm going to talk about that when I talk about the ending. But it wasn't just the main story itself, that stressed me out and made me feel like I had to rush everywhere. It was the NPCs and indeed the game mechanics, the way it handled my interaction with the NPCs via the phone. And specifically, I'm talking about the fact that I couldn't not answer the phone most of the time. Any of the time. I always answer the phone, no matter what I'm doing. Be in the middle of a mission. I might be meeting the maelstrom for some really critical thing that I'm doing, and I have to answer the phone, even though there's a conversation going on. I'm in the middle of a conversation with one person, and now I'm having a conversation on the phone. Now I get it. That's how it happens in real life. But in real life, you can also just not answer the phone. Just, no, put you through to voicemail. If I could have put people through to voicemail and just had a little message come up, Takamura phones me. I'm like, no. And I get a voicemail that says, we need to talk. Phone me as soon as you can. That would have been brilliant. But I don't. It's like he phones you, you have to answer it, and he says, meet me at a diner now. And you don't even have an option to say, no, I'm going to my friend's funeral. I'll see you tomorrow, maybe. So you've got to leave him there. You got your friend's funeral, and then you go and see him the next day, and he's sat there without a care in the world, like you turned up immediately. That's, I wish more games would do what Kingdom Come Deliverance did and actually punish you for turning up to these meetings tardy. But in a way, it's a good job Cyberpunk 2077 doesn't do that, because unfortunately, you seem to have less control over which meetings and jobs you get. The funny thing is, some of the missions actually handle the player agency way better. For example, I can think of 2 or 3 missions where you actually have the option to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't have time. And what you will get is, oh, well, that's a shame. Call me if you do get the time. That's perfect. The 3rd river mission, he contacted me, said, let's have a meal. And I'm like, no, well, I got a concert tonight, so I can't do it. So I had to say no. But when I checked the log messages, the journal, it said, phone River when you have time for the meal. And I thought, yes, that's how it should be done. And that's how it should be done for more or less all of these meetings. And it is possible. The game proves that with the missions it does handle pretty well. Even if it didn't let me not answer the phone, it did give me options as to whether or not to accept the job there and then. Do that more often. But for crying out loud, I just give people the option to not answer the phone. Just not answer the phone, have the phone put through to voicemail, let them leave a message, you can phone them back later. Now, I know some people are going to be very confused as to why this is all a problem. They're going to be like, but just take all the quests, do them when you feel like it. It doesn't matter, the game won't punish you. It's not Kingdom Come Deliverance. There are no consequences for turning up late. Stop worrying about it. I don't get it. You're just whining about nothing. And if that's how you feel, it's very hard for me to try and explain to you why a coherent, believable narrative is so important to me. The best I could do is say, imagine you're watching a movie. Imagine you're watching Lord of the Rings and you get to the scene where Gandalf is on the bridge and he's stood there facing the Balrog and he screams at Frodo and all the rest of the Fellowship, "Run, you fools!" And Frodo goes, "Yeah, no, totally. I will do that in just, later. It's just, I see some fishing down there. I'm going to go to fishing. And there's an area to loot over there, and I'm pretty sure this is where, you remember that guy we met said there was going to be a thing to find? I'm going to go and do that. You just hold that, give me a second. And he ran off, and he spends 3 hours fishing, and a bunch of time, and then he gets lost, and then he gets sidetracked again, and then he runs back up, and he gets to the bridge, and he goes, all right, Gandalf, we'll see you later. Well, no, you won't. You're going to die here. Well, no, it was nice knowing you, and off he goes, right? That is how that would feel if I played the game the way you're telling me to play. Yes, theoretically, you could make a movie where Frodo did that. Tolkien could have written the book in a way where Frodo did that and didn't take Gandalf's imminent demise and command to flee, you fools, seriously. You could. I put it to you that that movie, that book, would not be as good as it was if it had in fact been written that way. And to me, playing games that are story-driven, narrative-driven, it's the same thing. I need the narrative to sort of make sense. I can handle magic, I can handle dragons, I can handle science fiction, I can handle all sorts of weirdness, but it all needs to sort of make sense within its own world, within the narrative. Circling back to the narrative and indeed to the end, I need to talk about how the end starts. Now, the end actually starts when you speak to Hanako. And I actually remember getting the Hanako mission and feeling a little like back when I'd just seen the Voodoo Boys and Johnny had helped me back to an apartment and I'd agreed to go and see Rogue for Johnny. Hanako contacts me and there was something about the way the mission was written in the journal and the fact that it was the only main mission that made me think, this feels like it's going to really start accelerating things. So much so that I actually spoke to somebody I trusted and said, look, don't tell me one way or another, but I get the feeling this particular mission is going to spiral my Let's Play out of hand and, out of control, and I'm going to end up finishing very, very early. And this person said, your suspicions are correct. So I sort of knew that I should avoid speaking to Hanako, even though actually it didn't make a huge amount of sense. Now, you can argue, you could say you don't trust her, which is fine. You don't trust her. You've got some other options you want to play through, so you're not going to go and speak to her yet. But, yeah, I mean, really? I'm not particularly in love with the way that mission was set up. And indeed, I was not happy with this sort of point of no return method that they used for that. I did avoid going and seeing her very deliberately, doing as much as I could until V and Johnny both agreed that's what we should do next. At that point, I'm out of ideas. My own character has betrayed me. My character has said, okay, it's time to go and see Hanako. And Johnny's gone, yeah, it is. And it's like, okay, so now I've got to go. I've got to go. And of course, I wait till the next morning. I go and call on her. And from my perspective, I've got this sinking feeling. V doesn't, right? V's just going to have a meeting. And you get to the door and there's that bloody awful point of no return message. I hate games that do that. I can't stand games when they do that. Well, it's not I can't stand games. I can't stand that moment when a game does that. Loads of games have done it and I hate it and it's so unnecessary. And I know right now there are people screaming at the monitor, no, I love that. Games should tell me when there's a point of no return. Yes, they should. They should tell you in a way that lets your character know. Because that's the thing. When that point of no return got flashed up, oh yeah, Gopher knew that was it. I wasn't getting anything else done. V didn't. V's just going in to have a meeting with Hanako. Now, maybe I could have come up with something. Maybe I've had long enough to think about it. Like, I don't know, maybe I just... Oh, God, I forgot. I put something on the stove. But even that, it was like, oh, no, I want to have a meal with River. Yeah, go have a meeting with Hanako. Hear what she has to say. And then while you're thinking about it, phone River and have a meal with him. That seems to be the sensible thing to do. No. Points of no return. If it's getting to go time, let the character know. Because in actual fact, if they'd redone that in such a way where you go and speak to Hanako, then she tells you her plan. You then speak to Johnny, you both leave. You don't have that weird attack that now means, oh, you've got to do it now. But you end up on the roof. He lays out his plan. And he says, right, you can either do my plan, or you can do the Eldorado plan, or you can do Haneko's, but I don't think you should, right? And instead of choosing one, you had gone, all right, that's our plans. Let's think about it. Just let's think about it, right? Option 4, let's think about it. And then when you were ready, you go and see Rogue, or you go and see Panam, or you go and see Hanako, right? You wait until you're ready, and then you go and see them. And you say, but it ruins the surprise of the attack. No, it doesn't, because the point of no return message lets you know something unexpected is going to happen, so therefore it's completely expected. There's no real reason to hide this from the character that makes sense to me. At least, I mean, there probably is, but I still don't see the point of it. I don't see the point of it. Even if I'd had an attack and, oh my God, my time is running out, and Vic had said, look, you can't go much longer. You've got to get this sorted out now. And I could have gone, right, I get it, I will. I've just got one or two things I want to do. I want to have dinner with River. I want a last dinner. For me, in many ways, tell the character that the point of no return is here. It actually gives me the reason for V not to go to the point of no return. V had no reason to not go and see Hanako. Whereas, if he'd gone to see Hanako, then he'd had the attack. And now, Vic says you don't have a lot of time left. V has very much a reason to go and save his life, but he might also be thinking, you know what? I might not make it. I want that last meal. And he'll go off and he'll do it. That's how I would have preferred it. I know some people are probably going to not prefer it that way. They like the big pop-up menu that tells you the player, but not the character. But for me, once my character had made up his mind to do such and such a thing, I'm not going to change it because the game tells me, the player, oh, by the way, we're going to do something to you. It's a surprise, but obviously you now know it, so it's not really a surprise. But could you pretend it's a surprise when it gets there? When this thing happens that derails all your plans, could you pretend like you're surprised? Thanks. That'd be great. Thanks. I'm not, as you can tell, I'm not a fan of that. So there are my overall problems with the pacing leading up from the start all the way up towards the end of the game. What makes them especially frustrating is they're not problems that had to exist. There are ways around them all, from being able to answer the phone calls and not answer the phone calls, from being able to just say to people, no, I'll contact you when I'm ready, to the main quest being a little more vague on the time, and then the end point actually being presented in a way that gave V the knowledge that he was about to do it. He was about to go and make that final move and try and save his life, but it was probably going to kill him anyway because it was so dangerous. Therefore, wrap anything up. There were so many ways they could have just tweaked the quest, smoothed off some of the rough edges and made it so much more relaxing to be able to experience way more of the content in this game. And it does have some great content, some great side quests, and I wish I could have experienced more of them on my first playthrough. So that brings us to the ending of my first playthrough, and I have very mixed feelings about it, and mixed probably edging towards negative. Of course, I felt very trapped and rushed into the end by the game. I wasn't ready to end, but I felt like I pretty much had no choice. And then, you go through the mission and it was okay. But as soon as I entered the Matrix, was it Mikoshi? I can't remember the name of it. I by the way, I finished my playthrough several months ago, so if I get some of the names wrong, I do apologize. But then I got in there, and I am still Johnny, right? Yeah, I'm Johnny. I think I'm Johnny, and then I'm having a conversation with V, myself. That was weird in of itself, but my V's reactions to me made no sense. I actually think there may have been a bug in my ending. It was so confusing because I was basically saying to V, as Johnny, I was saying, no, you get the body. And my V was arguing. I didn't understand that at all. But he was arguing in a way that didn't feel right or make sense. So I thought to myself, am I mad? Is my... I'm talking to the anagram of V now. I'm the anagram of Johnny speaking to the anagram of V, but the anagram of V is like completely nuts. What's he doing? And then when Johnny says, "No, I'm going to give you your body back," V was going bonkers. But he was not going bonkers. If he'd have grabbed me and said, "No, listen, you take the body. I'm going to die anyway. There's no point. There's no point both of us doing." And then Johnny could have gone, "No, it's your body. You've only got a few months. Make them count," or something, done something heroic or something. Yeah, it would have been, but it didn't. It just felt completely bleh. Like I was totally messed up by it, to the point where I'm absolutely convinced, well, not absolutely, semi-convinced that something went wrong, because it just felt like, it almost felt like, I felt like I'd said, "No, you get to keep your body," but the game was almost reacting as if Johnny had gone, "No, I shall take the body," ha 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 ha, or something. It felt weird, okay? So then I wake up as V in a strange apartment, and I don't know where the hell I am. And then I go downstairs and I speak to Panam, who seems to be annoyed with me, and I don't know why, and I'm already annoyed. I'm already annoyed because I don't know what's going on. I don't feel like I'm at the end of the game. I feel like I've started a new game with a new character, and I'm trying to figure out who this character is, right? This feels all wrong. Instead, at the beginning of a game, yeah, you're trying to figure out who the character you're playing is, but by the end of the game, you've crafted the character. This was my V, and I don't know who my V is. I mean, yes, I've been carrying around someone else's personality in my head for the last several, probably months, in spite of the story, but I don't know who I am. This is supposed to be the original V without ever any of Johnny's personality traits, but it doesn't even feel like it's my V with some of Johnny's personality traits either. None of this makes any sense. I just don't know who I am, which was very, very frustrating. And then Panam gives you this ultimatum, basically, or this choice. She says she's leaving Night City, and she says, "Why don't you come with me," sort of thing. And you get no choice. Well, no, that's wrong. No. See, having no choice wouldn't have frustrated me. If she'd have said, "I'm leaving Night City, and I'm leaving you because you've changed. I'm sorry, I don't want to be with you," I'd have been like, all right, okay. Well, no, I would have said that was, "Oh no, it's sad, boo-hoo," right? But no, she's like, "Come with me," and I've got 3 no's. No, with one excuse. No, with another excuse. No, with another excuse. This is worse than Fallout 4 with its yes, no sarcastic, no funny, right? Because at least there you got a yes and 3 no's. Now I've got 3 bloody no's. And look, I'm not one of these people who demands that every single choice is one I'm going to like or agree with in a game. But this is the last choice I'm ever making. Last choice I'm ever making. And apparently, I don't... Well, the choice is V's, but not mine. I'm not choosing for V because I would have immediately gone, "Yeah, I'm with you. Let's fire at the car. Let's go." Now, probably because I don't know what the hell is going on. Maybe V has a very good reason for saying no. Why don't you tell me that reason before I speak to Panam? Because then for the rest of the epilogue, I'm like getting all this information thrown at me, and then I end up on a mission, and I get the feeling I'm doing the mission because it might help save my life. Then why was Panam against it? Why wasn't Panam going, "Oh, you're going on that mission? I'm in. Don't you dare leave me behind this time. You leave me behind this time, I'm going to cut him off." Okay? But no, she was all like, "No, come with me," right? Well, if I've got a plan to save my life, does she not believe it'll happen? I've got so many questions. And it's great to have questions when you start a game. It's great to have a lot of questions sometimes at the end of a game. But not if you're the one in the process of playing it. You're making me go along with this mission. You're making me go along with saying no to Panam, but you're not telling me why. If you'd have done that whole thing as a cutscene, I probably would have been okay with it and been wondering, oh, what did V find out? What was V told? What, he seemed so convinced that he had to go on this mission. When he spoke to Panam, he was so firm. No, I've got to go. I would have been like, ooh, are they leading up to a DLC? What's going on? But they didn't. They made me go through it. All the while, I am behind V's eyes screaming at V. I did not like it. I do not like that kind of ending at all. Don't misunderstand me. I still thoroughly enjoyed the game in spite of the ending annoying me. It's kind of like Mass Effect 3. The ending of Mass Effect 3 was a little disappointing, but it didn't change the fact that I loved Mass Effect 1, 2, and most of 3. Loved those games, disappointed by the ending. Cyberpunk's the same, thoroughly enjoyed playing it, really annoyed by that first ending I got. The other two endings I got, I'm perfectly happy with. One of them was happy, one of them was sad, but they felt right. And I still intend to play through the game at least one more time. I want to do a corpo run, I want to do a net runner, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until there's some DLC, or if there's DLC, and I will do a better job of planning my way through certain moments to perhaps smudge some of the narrative pressure, argue with it a little bit. It's always easier to argue with narrative pressure once you know the game reasonably well. You can pick your moments, you can roleplay this, that, and the other. You can pretend certain things have been said that may not have actually been said and just go with it a bit more. I may record that. It's all going to depend on time, but I will absolutely be playing the game again. I did enjoy it. I just really wish the pacing had been, completely different. And I wish the first ending I'd got had made more sense. I think that's it in the end for the ending. I ended the game and all I could think was, huh? What? That's not the best way. I'd rather end a game with a smile or a tear than a look of confusion.